Hello, I'm Robin. Welcome to Bookspin. We are now into April, so it's time for another monthly update. I'm going to kick things off by looking back at what I read during March. So I started off the month by finishing Destination Universe by A.E. Van Vogt, which is a vintage short story collection, most of these stories from the 1940s. And it was my first taste of this author. There's some pretty decent stories in here, but nothing that really blew me away. Anyway, I put up a review on this channel if you want to know more. The next book I read was The Fountains of Paradise by Arthur C. Clarke, which I read as a buddy read with Ira from SF Words of Wonder. Now, I really enjoyed this one. A few weeks beforehand, Ira had sent me a list of books in his TBR, and he asked me to choose one title from that list that I was interested in for us to read together. And so I chose this title because it's a book which I've been meaning to read for quite a long time, and I'm glad I chose this one. It's got a really interesting concept about this giant space elevator. Intriguing setting, kind of fictionalized version of Sri Lanka. And the prose was pretty engaging, I think. So yeah, we had quite an interesting discussion about this book on one of Ira's videos. So you can find that video on his channel if you'd like to know more. And then the next book I read was Dayworld Rebel by Philip Jose Farmer, which is the sequel to Dayworld, and it's the third book overall in this series that I've read. So this particular book was published in the late 80s, and it's a kind of SF adventure thriller. The action takes off straight after the events of the first novel, and I did enjoy it. It's Philip Jose Farmer, so he's always fun to read. But to some extent, I think it did lack the freshness and the originality of the concept from the first book. But still, it was entertaining, and the world building is pretty fascinating. So I'm going to make a Dayworld series wrap-up video very soon. Probably going to be my next video. So I'll talk more about this book and this series in detail in that video. And then I moved on to The Anomaly by Hervé Letellier, and this is probably got to be my reading highlight of the month. So this is a modern SF novel. It's a kind of sci-fi mystery thriller, and it's got quite an incredible premise about a bizarre incident in which an aeroplane flying over the Atlantic Ocean duplicates. And so two versions of this plane come into existence, and everyone on board the plane finds themselves with a double now existing in the universe that they have to learn to live with. And it's got quite interesting philosophical themes. I put up a review of this book just a few days ago. And the book that I'm reading at the minute is Dayworld Breakup. So this is the last Dayworld book before I'm done with the series. I'm only about 100 pages in so far, but it's going well. So again, look out for the series wrap-up coming up soon. And besides all of these physical books, I've also been listening to an audiobook, Project Hail Mary. So I finished my previous audiobook, which I talked about last time, which is the non-fiction book about cats. And I was wondering what I could listen to next, or if I should have a break from audiobooks for a while. I normally only listen to non-fiction audiobooks, but I'd heard so many good things about Project Hail Mary and particularly the Project Hail Mary audiobook version from multiple people. So I thought I had to give it a try. So I'm about 3/4 of the way through the audiobook now. I've got about 4 hours left. I'm going to say it is good. I am enjoying it, but I don't think it quite matches up to the hype. So that I like the concept. I think there are a lot of interesting ideas in here. We've got this kind of doomsday scenario. We've got a grand mystery to solve. We've got this mission into space with a lone astronaut who's kind of lost his memories, at least to start with. And we've got a first contact scenario. So lots of interesting concepts in there, which make for quite an engaging story. And also I think the narrator is pretty good in the audiobook. But the only issue I have with this book is I find the protagonist and his characterization kind of annoying. We've got a first-person narrator who is a high school science teacher turned astronaut. And I think it's supposed to be kind of humorous and likable, but I don't think I really get on well with the humor in this book. I find his constant sarcasm and his goofy quips, they're kind of grating. I think it's supposed to be endearing, but I just found him annoying. So it might be just the way Andy Weir writes, the way he builds his character doesn't really mesh with me. So yeah, it's a decent story, and I can understand why lots of people love it, but the writing style is not really my cup of tea. So I haven't finished it yet, and I don't plan to make a review on this book, but I'm predicting it's probably going to be a 3-star rating for me. So those are all the books that I've been reading. Now, I haven't picked up much in the way of new books this month, which in a way is quite a good thing, because I don't want to be in a situation where I'm picking up new books faster than I can read them. Okay, I'm trying to slow down on all the book hauling. However, I did still receive another book, which I got free from the publisher, and it does look very interesting. So this is a new release. This is Luminous by Sylvia Park. This was released just last month in March. It's from Magpie, which is an imprint of One World Publishing. And they've got this information slip. I'm not going to read all this, but I can tell you that it says the hotly anticipated debut for fans of Machines Like Me and Clara and the Sun, and it's got some pretty good reviews. So yeah, that's just been released, and thank you very much to One World Publications for sending me this. I will read it at some point soon. Anyway, let's have a look at what's on the cards for my April TBR. First up, I need to finish reading Daywell Breakup. So yeah, that series will finally be done soon. Now, so for the other books this month, one book which I'm very keen to read, and I might even read it as my next book, is The Wall by Marlon Haushofer, okay, which is a kind of classic dystopian post-apocalyptic novel, originally published in the German language, I think. So it's a translation. And this book has been on my TBR for a very long time. In fact, one of my earliest videos on this channel, I mentioned this book as something I wanted to read. But I only picked up a copy relatively recently. Anyway, the reason I think I might read this now is I'm planning to make a video soon on the theme of post-apocalyptic books. Right, and I've got a list of books I want to talk about, but I wanted to read this one before I make that video, because I think it might be worthy of discussion. And like I said, it's been on my TBR for donkey's years. So yeah, The Wall looks to be a very interesting read. So yeah, I might read that one next. Another book which I expect to read this month is Robert Silverberg's The World Inside, which is another book which I've been meaning to read for absolutely ages. And I really want to read more Silverberg, and this is one of the top books in my list of things I want to read, especially from Silverberg. I've been in touch with Jack from the channel Sci-Fi Finds, which is an excellent SF BookTube channel, because Jack has been reading a lot of Robert Silverberg recently, and he's a big fan. And I saw in one of his videos that he also picked up the same copy of The World Inside. So I've suggested to him that we do a buddy read of The World Inside. He's agreed. We just haven't finalized the date yet. So once we've both read this book, hopefully we can get together and make a video together to discuss The World Inside. So look out for that. What else? So I showed you this book, Luminous. I might read it in April. I'm not sure yet. I definitely plan to read this in the next month or two. So this might be part of April's reading, or it might get delayed till May. We shall see. I've also got another audiobook which I'm planning to listen to soon. This one is called Pilgrims by M.R. Leonard. So in this case, the author got in touch with me. It's his debut novel. He wanted to know if I'd be interested in this book. It's a kind of first contact story with religious themes. Sounds pretty intriguing. It's got some really good reviews online. So I agreed. But I thought it'd be easier to slot this into my audiobook schedule, right? So I agreed to listen to the audiobook, which he kindly sent to me. So yeah, I'll probably listen to Pilgrims sometime during April once I'm done with Project Hail Mary. And finally, I'm going to have a look at the TBR picker to see what else I could read during April. Right. So this is exciting, isn't it? This is the TBR picker. Let's see what prompt I get. A reread. All right, so I've picked 3 books from my bookshelves, which I would happily reread. These are all books which I loved when I read them, and I haven't read them for a long time, many years, long before I started this channel. So the first option is The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham, the classic 1950s post-apocalyptic novel, and one of Wyndham's most famous works. And I absolutely love the illustration on this edition. This is not the edition which I read originally, but yeah, this would be a great choice, I think. I think it's been about 10 years since I last read it. The next choice is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. An absolute classic, not just within the genre, but within 20th century fiction in general. And this is an absolutely beautiful edition, which was given to me as a birthday present a few years ago. I last read this book as a young teenager when I was at school. We actually read it in English class. I think I was about 13 or 14 at the time. And I remember being pretty blown away at the time, but my memory is pretty hazy on this one. But this is an absolutely lovely edition with an introduction by Yuval Noah Harari, who is quite an interesting person in his own right. Finally, I've got another absolute banger here, The Lathe of Heaven by Ursula K. Le Guin. The first Le Guin book that I ever read. I read this as a part of a book club many years ago, and this is how I got introduced to Le Guin as a writer. This is a fantastic novel, one of my all-time favourites. So yeah, those are the three options. I don't think you could go wrong with any of those. They're all 5-star reads. But you know what? I think I'm gonna have to choose Brave New World because, well, for one thing, it's been so long since I read it, I can't remember it that well. So I think I definitely need to refresh my mind and reread this as an adult. And this is such a beautiful edition, I think. Just look at that. We've got a nice quote at the back. I want freedom, I want goodness, I want sin. Along with 1984, this is one of the big dystopian classics of 20th century literature. So, yes, I will definitely reread Brave New World. Okay, so that does it for this wrap up. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again soon.